Welcome back to the final part of this three-part video series looking at the three most common challenges that all businesses face, which are time, team, and money. My name's Neil Martin. I'm one of the senior business coaches here at Action Coach Cheltenham. And today we're talking about money. Now, if you've watched the first two videos in this three-part series, you know that I started each of those videos by asking you some questions. And today is no different. So my first question for you today is, how much profit do you want to make in the next 12 months? How much profit do you want to make in your business in the next year? And how does that compare with the last year? I'm assuming there's some growth in there, right? What would that extra profit mean to you? How would you use it? How might you invest it in growing and scaling the business? How might you take some of it and actually use it to reward yourself? What would that extra profit mean to you, to your family, to your loved ones? How would you feel about that? Because let's face it, that's why we start businesses in the first place, right? It's to actually give ourselves more life. And what is a business? What is the definition of a true business? Well, a true business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. And we touched on the without you part in the last video when we were talking about team. If you get the right systems in place and you get the right people in place, if the people look after the systems run the business. Those people look after the customers look after the business in terms of paying money, and that business then looks after you. Your job is to make sure that those systems and everything are in place for that team so that that business can run without you. And if you want to, you can step away from the business, be that for a day, a week, a month, be that entirely. That choice is yours. But until it can operate without you, is it ever really a true business? Or is it just a kind of job that you own? But like I say, we talked about team quite a bit in the last video. In this one, we're talking about money. And so I want to focus on that word profitable. But before we talk about profit, the first thing that I actually want to talk about along the same lines is break even. At what point does your business break even? At what point in a month, in a week, in a day? Have you ever even looked at the business that way before? Have you sat down and gone, okay, well, this is how much it costs me per day to operate this business. So how much income do I need to bring in on each day to break even? And at what point in a typical day do we make that amount of money? At what point in a typical day or week or month do we hit our break-even point that beyond there we're making profit? And once you've figured out what that number is, I want to introduce you to a slightly different way of looking at break-even, and that is what we would refer to as profit break-even. See, what's the minimum amount of profit that you want to make in your business this year? What is the minimum amount of profit that you want to make? And how is that factored into your numbers? And at what point during the day or the week or the month do you hit that profit break even? So not just the point at which the costs are covered, but the point at which you go, do you know what? It's worthwhile having this business because I'm solving customers' problems, I'm meeting their needs, and I'm making a profit. Because remember, commercial, profitable enterprise, that works without you. It has to be profitable for it to be a true business. So at what point do you hit that profit break even, that planned number? Because beyond that, everything else is a bonus. Beyond that, every other pound of profit is you exceeding the minimum. It's you stretching yourself. It's you truly growing and developing that company. And I think one of the other things to mention actually while we're talking along those same kinds of lines is the difference between profits and cash. Because a profit happens at the point that you get the commitment to the business. It's at the point where maybe you deliver the work. But is that the same as the cash? Someone owes you money, on paper you made a profit, but that's different to the money actually being in your bank account. And, when we think about money coming into the bank account, depending on the type of business you're in, it might be that you've got costs around service delivery that you have to pay out a long time before someone pays you, especially depending on what your payment terms are. Do people pay you on, at the moment that a transaction takes place? Or is it on 7-day terms or 14-day terms or 30-day terms or 60? What is the payment terms that you're working with your customers? Is there a way for you to shorten that? Is there a way to shorten the gap between when you pay for things and when you get paid for things? Is there a way to shorten the gap between when you deliver a service and when the client pays you? And a lot of that is really simple. It comes down to making it easy for people to pay. So how easy is it for me to pay you right now? Yeah, if I was to approach your company, your business for a product or a service today, how easy is it for me to give you money? Can I go on your website and find the thing that I want and book that or order that service or product and pay you there and then? Do I have that option? Yeah, if I phone you, you set up to take telephone payments. If somebody comes out and delivers a service for me, are they able to take a payment at that point, or will there always be an invoice? And talking of invoices, if it's recurring business, how do you handle that recurring invoice? Do you send an invoice every month and wait for someone to pay you? Do you have to chase them up? Or do you collect that payment through direct debit or through a recurring payment charge, on a credit card or a debit card? What is your method for actually collecting money? Because to shorten that cash gap and to make sure you've got the cash flow that you need to keep your business operating successfully, you need to make sure that it's easy for people to actually make those payments to you. Oh, and by the way, on those occasions where people don't pay, you also need to make sure you've got a robust system in place for actually chasing that up, making sure that you do get that money in as quickly as possible. And I think something to mention around this is how much money you're actually bringing in from those clients. Can I ask you a question? If we were to talk about competing on price, how do you win? There's only one way to win a price competition, and that's to be the cheapest. And how much money do you make when you're the cheapest? Unless you can be one of those really high volume businesses that works on really small margins but massive volume, you should stop competing on price. You should stop competing on price and start competing on value. Start competing on how can we deliver more to this client? How can we differentiate ourselves in the market so that people know the value of working with us versus working with someone else? So it's not an apples with apples comparison, it's an apples with oranges comparison. So people are prepared to pay a premium for your service or your product because they know that what they're going to get is a quality they might not get from somebody else. What is that point of differentiation that means you are worth that extra money? It's something to think about. How do you eliminate price competition? How do you get yourself into a place in the market where people go, yep, I want to work with them, even if they are slightly more expensive? Because think about it, how many times in your life have you gone, I want cheapest? The only time you go cheapest is when you think every option is the same and it's the cheapest of that option. But very often when we're buying things, we're looking at options where they're not exactly the same. And we're going, well, actually, I don't mind paying a little bit more for version X, for service X, for product X, because I know what I'm getting for my money and I feel I'm getting the better value. Which leads me on to talking a little bit about the difference between markup and margin. It actually surprises me how many people in business that I speak to where the understanding between markup and margin isn't always clear. See, what is the difference? Well, markup is when you take a cost price and you add a percentage to it, whereas margin is a percentage of the price that you're selling for. So if I had £150 service or product that it costs me £100 to deliver, what is my markup? Well, my markup from £100 to £150 is 50%. Yes, I've added 50% to my cost price to get to my sale price. But if I reverse engineer that and I go, well, I'm selling this thing for £150, what's my margin? Well, my margin is 33% because only a third of that sale price is actually mine. It's actually my margin. It's actually my profit. Okay, so there's a big difference there between markup and margin, and we need to be clear on what our understanding of those things are. And in particular, we need to be careful of how we protect our margins when we're selling our products. Because, for example, again, I'm going to give you another simple example with simple maths here, but if we've got a product that, I don't know, maybe we sell for £100 and it costs us £80, okay, product or service, £100 sale price, £80 cost price. That means there's £20 of margin in there. Now, let's just assume we maybe give a discount of 10% to the customer. What have we actually done? We've given away 50% of our margin. And if we've given away half of the margin, how many more products do we have to sell to make the same amount of money? It's actually twice as many, isn't it? If we've given away half, we need to give away twice as many. But when we give a 10% discount, we don't think we've got to work twice as hard to actually make that money back. But if we look at the margin, we can discover that we do. Which leads me on to one of the biggest points that I want to make in this particular presentation today. And that is that numbers are the language of business. Numbers are the language of business. And the better you understand your numbers, the better you can operate your business. Now that applies to money, but it also applies to time. It also applies to team. Because how well do you know your performance indicators? How well have you established the numbers that you use to measure everything in your business? And maybe you've heard this before, but there is an old saying that says, what gets measured gets managed. Yeah, how do you manage something properly if you don't know what the numbers are? How do you make informed decisions without having the information required to make those informed decisions? How can you run a business without actually having the detail and the clarity and the visibility and transparency of those numbers? So I encourage you today to look at the numbers in your business. Look at your profit and loss. Look at where you are this year versus where you were maybe last year or the year before. Look at your projections and your budgets moving forward. Get a good understanding of the key numbers that you're going to use to measure your business as you move into the next 12 months. And then one other thing I encourage you to do, which if you've watched the other videos, you might know what I'm about to say. But I encourage you to take action. I encourage you, if there's been a light bulb go on for you in any of these videos that I've made, the video that my colleague Anne made, or indeed any of the other content that you've consumed recently, what are the things where you go, I need to do something about this? Maybe you need to reach out to someone that could help you. Maybe you need to find a book on a subject. Maybe there's something you need to learn more about. But more than anything, what are the things you need to implement? What are the things where you need to make some time in your diary and actually focus on understanding and implementing key things that will move the needle for you in your business in 2023? My name's Neil Martin. I hope you found this useful. As I mentioned before, I'm one of the senior business coaches at Action Coach Cheltenham. And if we can be of any further assistance to you, I would love to hear from you. Thank you for your time.